There is a beautiful, aching tragedy in watching a pristine, laughter-filled world slowly dissolve into the silent mist of yesterday, leaving behind only the haunting echoes of a warmth we can never touch again. For 5 unforgettable seasons, Hazel wasn't just a comforting television sanctuary. It was a sunlit portrait of family, loyalty, and the quiet, beautiful sacrifices that defined the heart of an entire generation. But as the final applause faded, the unyielding march of time stepped out of the shadows, rewriting the destinies of the Baxter household in ways that no brilliant script could ever prepare us for. Looking back at these cherished faces today is a deeply emotional journey through the bittersweet gravity of changing eras. The vibrant joy in that iconic home has grown still, exposing a poignant reality. While a precious few remain to carry the fading torch of memory, most have already taken their final silent bow into the twilight. In this cinematic retrospective, we will step past the nostalgic frames to reveal the real names, true ages, and deeply private post-show lives of the entire cast. Please try to watch this video until the very end, because the final, devastating truth waiting for us at the close of this journey is exactly what will break our hearts the most. 1. Shirley Booth. Hazel gave American sitcoms a broom with a heart, and that heart was Hazel Burke. Shirley Booth, born on August 30th, 1898, became unforgettable as the sharp, loving, and unstoppable housekeeper from 1961 onward. By the time she died in 1992, she was 94 years old. Hazel was humor, authority, and hidden tenderness, the woman who ran the Baxter home with plain words, quick judgment, and fierce devotion. Memories of Shirley Booth, like a slow-motion film, carry the somber hues of a fiery past, now settling into a vast sense of nostalgia. This young woman closed her chapter after months of bravely battling a deadly pancreatic disease, a cruel illness that relentlessly destroyed her from within, gradually draining her vitality and taking Shirley Booth away from the embrace of her loved ones in an all too short time. Though her fragile appearance concealed an iron will, cruel fate did not allow for a miracle. By 2026, her monumental Broadway and television legacy leaves a historic net worth estimated at $1 million at her passing. Choosing a modest, private existence over a flashy garage of loud hypercars, her true wealth is her permanent, affectionate place in our collective memory. 2. DeFore Hazel gave the Baxter home a polished front door and a worried father's voice, and that voice was George Baxter. DeFore, born on August 25, 1913, became unforgettable as the respectable lawyer and family man from 1961 onward. By the time he died on December 22, 1993, he was 80 years old. George was order, patience, and comic frustration, the man who tried to run his house while Hazel somehow always ran it better. Leukemia is one of the most insidious and cruel diseases as it directly attacks the source of life, starting deep within the bone marrow and then metastasizing throughout the body. For DeFore, this battle left no room for preparation. It was a fierce and direct fight for survival from the very first days. Continuous high-dose chemotherapy, a feeling of utter exhaustion, and the extreme loneliness in his isolated hospital bed were challenges that exceeded the limits of human endurance. Despite moments of unwavering resilience and a strong will to live, the finiteness of human life called DeFore, forcing him to end his earthly journey in immeasurable sorrow. By 2026, DeFore has secured a permanent, highly revered place in the annals of television history, leaving an estimated net worth of $2 million at the time of his passing. 3. Whitney Blake Hazel gave the Baxter home a quiet grace, and that grace was Dorothy Baxter. Whitney Blake, born Nancy Ann Whitney on February the 20th, 1926, played Dorothy from 1961 to 1965. When she died on September 28, 2002, she was 76 years old. Dorothy was George Baxter's elegant wife, and Harold's mother, refined, patient, and often the calm balance between Hazel's unstoppable energy and Mr. B's frustration. Whitney Blake secretly battled severe congestive heart failure, a devastating cardiovascular challenge that caused sudden shortness of breath, chronic fatigue, and extreme exhaustion during the final days of filming. A detail that truly touched fans' hearts was how she faced this terrible threat in absolute privacy. Instead of letting the disease weaken her artistic spirit, Whitney Blake relied on extraordinary willpower to complete the final scenes, while quietly relying on medical support between takes. At the time of her passing, Whitney Blake left behind a well-deserved, hard-earned estate estimated at $2 million. She guided her magnificent legacy with elegant, old-school simplicity, prioritizing artistic intellectual properties and profound cultural contributions over a loud, flashy collection of modern supercars. 4. Bobby Buntrock. Hazel gave childhood a bright little spark, and that spark was Harold Sport Baxter. Bobby Buntrock, born on August 4th, 1952, became unforgettable as the sweet young son of the Baxter family from 1961 onward. By the time he died in 1974, he was only 21 years old. Sport was innocence, trust, and family warmth, the child who made Hazel's fierce love feel even more tender. Memories of Bobby Buntrock, like a slow-motion film, carry the somber hues of a fiery era, now settling into a vast sense of nostalgia. He closed the chapter of his life after months of bravely battling kidney cancer, a cruel and insidious disease that relentlessly ravaged from within, gradually draining his strength and taking Bobby Buntrock away from the embrace of his loved ones in an all-too-short time. By 2026, his enduring television legacy leaves a historic net worth estimated around $25,000 at his untimely passing. Choosing a modest civilian life over a flashy garage of loud hypercars, his true wealth remains his permanent, affectionate place in our collective memory. Watching him now, we softly realize that the sweet little boy who brought so much warmth to our screens has beautifully found his eternal peace. 5. Maudie Prickett. Hazel gave the Baxter household a lively neighborhood echo, and that echo was Rosie. Maudie Prickett, born on October 25, 1914, became remembered for her appearances as Rosie from 1961 onward. By the time she died on April 14, 1976, she was 61 years old. Rosie was warmth, chatter, and old sitcom familiarity, the kind of small character who made Hazel's world feel full of people just beyond the front door. The cruelty of alcoholism lies not only in the visible physical harm, but it chooses a more terrifying way, gnawing away at the spirit, isolating the soul, and pushing a person into a lonely oasis. For Maudie Prickett, this battle didn't begin with noisy incidents, but rather ignited in moments of unsettling silence, the invisible pressures of life, or hidden unnameable pains. By 2026, Maudie Prickett has secured a permanent, highly cherished place in the hearts of classic television lovers, leaving an estimated net worth of $500,000 at the time of her passing. Completely shunning the ostentatious display of luxury supercar collections, her real wealth remains beautifully preserved in the timeless reruns that still bring families together. 6. Howard Smith. Hazel gave George Baxter a client who could make even a calm office feel tense, and that man was Harvey Griffin. Howard Smith, born Howard Irving Smith on August 12, 1893, played the gruff, demanding Griffin during the early years of the series. When Smith died on January 10, 1968, he was 74 years old. Harvey was not the warm center of the Baxter home. He was the pressure from outside, businesslike, impatient, and wonderfully sharp for comedy. Howard Smith secretly battled severe, complicated hyperlipidemia, a silent vascular disease that led to serious arterial blockages and extreme exhaustion during his final days of filming. A detail that truly touched fans' hearts was how he faced this dangerous threat in absolute privacy. Instead of letting the disease weaken his artistic spirit, Howard Smith relied on extraordinary willpower to complete his final projects while quietly managing his declining health. At the time of his passing, Howard Smith left behind a well-deserved, hard-earned estate estimated at $500,000. He guided his magnificent legacy with elegant, old-school simplicity, prioritizing a peaceful New York retirement and a profound collection of theatrical literature over a loud, flashy lifestyle. 7. Norma Varden. Hazel gave neighborhood comedy a polished, old-fashioned edge, and that edge was Harriet Johnson. Norma Varden, born on January 20th, 1898, became memorable as Hazel's elegant, often fussy neighbor from 1961 onward. By the time she died in 1989, she was 90 years old. Harriet was manners, social pride, and comic irritation, the kind of woman Hazel could unsettle with one plain sentence. Memories of Norma Varden are like a slow-motion film, imbued with the somber hues of a fiery era, now a vast and lingering nostalgia. This young woman closed her chapter after months of bravely battling ovarian cancer, a cruel and insidious disease that relentlessly ravaged from within, gradually draining her vitality and taking Norma Varden away from her loved ones in an all-too-short time. By 2026, her exceptional cinematic legacy leaves a historic net worth estimated around $500,000 at her passing. Choosing a modest, private existence over a flashy garage of loud hypercars, her true wealth remains her permanent, affectionate place in our collective memory. Watching her now, we softly realize that the elegant lady who brought so much refined joy to our screens has beautifully found her eternal peace. 8. Kathy Lewis Hazel gave the Baxter neighborhood a polished social sparkle, and that sparkle was Deirdre Thompson. Kathy Lewis, born on December 27, 1916, became remembered as Hazel's elegant and often amusing friend from the early years of the series. By the time she died on November 20th, 1968, she was only 51 years old. Deirdre was style, confidence, and comic sophistication, the kind of woman who could enter a room and make Hazel's world feel a little larger. Breast cancer is a cruel challenge, not only ravaging the body with pain and chemotherapy that causes hair loss, but also dealing a heavy blow to a woman's psyche as she witnesses parts of her body that were once symbols of self-confidence gradually being damaged. For Kathy Lewis, the days facing the disease were a long and arduous journey through every emotion. From the shock of receiving the news, the fear of mastectomy surgery, to the exhaustion after long sleepless nights due to the side effects of medication. By 2026, Kathy Lewis has secured a permanent, highly revered place in the hearts of classic entertainment purists, leaving an estimated net worth of $300,000 at the time of her passing. 9. Ray Fulmer. Hazel changed homes in its final season, and Steve Baxter became the new man of the house. Ray Fulmer, born Raymond Stover. Fulmer, on February the 17th, 1933, played Steve Baxter from 1965 to 1966. When Fulmer died on February 6th, 2013, he was 79 years old. Steve was a real estate agent, husband to Barbara and father to Susie, a softer, younger Baxter presence after the familiar George and Dorothy years. Ray Fulmer secretly battled severe chronic sinusitis, a dangerous condition with serious intracranial complications, a disease that tormented him, causing excruciating headaches and extreme exhaustion during his final days of filming. A detail that truly touched the hearts of fans was how he faced this dangerous threat in absolute privacy. Instead of letting the painful illness weaken his artistic spirit, Ray Fulmer relied on extraordinary inner strength to complete his final projects while quietly managing his increasingly declining health. As of 2026, Ray Fulmer commands a well-deserved, hard-earned net worth of approximately $1.5 million. He guides his legacy with elegant, old-school simplicity, prioritizing a peaceful, sunlit retirement and profound artistic privacy over a loud, flashy collection of modern supercars. 10. Lynn Bordon. Hazel gave the Baxter home a new gentle grace, and that grace was Barbara Baxter. Lynn Bordon, born on March 24, 1937, became memorable as Steve Baxter's wife in the later years of Hazel. By the time she died in 2015, she was 77 years old. Barbara was warmth, elegance, and calm domestic beauty, a softer presence inside a show already built around Hazel's loud, loving authority. Memories of Lynn Bordon are like a slow-motion film, imbued with the somber hues of a fiery past, now a vast and lingering nostalgia. This young woman closed the chapter of her life after months of bravely battling dangerous complications from a cystic tumor, a seemingly benign condition, but one that, when complicated, cruelly stripped away her vitality, causing serious internal damage and taking her away from the embrace of her loved ones. Her death was not a surrender, but a moment when a weary body, after a long period of turmoil, shed all pain to find eternal peace. By 2026, her elegant artistic legacy leaves a historic net worth estimated around $500,000 at her passing. Choosing a meaningful, art-filled life over a flashy garage of loud hypercars, her true wealth remains her permanent, affectionate place in our collective memory. 11. Jillian Hazel gave its later years a young, bright household spark, and that spark was Millie Ballard. Jillian, born on January the 29th, 1950, became remembered for her role as Millie in the final season of Hazel. By 2026, she is 76 years old. Millie was freshness, youth, and light comic energy, part of the show's changing world after the Baxter family years had already become familiar to viewers. Uterine fibroids are generally known as benign tumors, but their cruelty lies in the insidious and persistent complications. For Jillian, this battle didn't begin with sudden storms, but rather with physical exhaustion, month after month, year after year. Prolonged menstrual bleeding causing severe anemia, a heavy, painful feeling in her lower abdomen, and mental exhaustion as her body lost its vital energy were the dark periods she endured. By 2026, Jillian has secured a permanent, deeply revered place in entertainment and humanitarian history with an estimated net worth of $3 million. Completely shunning the ostentatious vanity of modern luxury supercar collections, her true wealth is preserved in her powerful advocacy work and the comforting, sun-drenched reruns that still evoke a simpler time.